talking about classification, biodiversity. So there's an international system. And why do we need an international system? Well, because scientists need to communicate with each other. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, whatever scientists discover, they need to have other scientists in some other part of the world back up their discovery, recreate their experiment, look and see if what they did was actually correct. And if you're all naming things differently, it's very hard to get on board to study. So scientists to communicate so results can be verified and improved. Just think about if everybody named things differently, the communication would be very difficult. So just think communication. And normally how people would name things, and I'm sorry I skipped that slide, but I'm going to write it down here. Basically the appearance. So what does it look like? And that can be a problem because a lot of things can look the same but be very different. Another factor is their behaviors or how they live. Mode of living or their niche, say survival. And that can be a problem too because things can have a similar way of surviving but be very different. And the other thing is where they're found, so location. So things were found together were thought to be part of the same species or group together. But now we have DNA, more sophisticated ways of examining living things, so we can be better at distinguishing different groups. So binomial, as I'm sure you know, bi means two, nomial means names. So you got two names, and as you all know, humans are Homo sapiens. Okay, that's something you're well aware of. So there are separate congresses, what they're called, that named fungi, animals, and plants. This was back a long time ago. Okay, so you need to separate those two or those three groups. And this person named Linnaeus came up with this binomial system. That's an M. So binomial system. So he created these names for plants, or no, I think it was animals. I'll double check there. Animals in 1753, and then for all known plants came in 1758. Let me just double check there. I was wrong. It was plants first. So just my apologies. You can do that. But 1750s when he came up with those names. That'll be good enough on the test. So here is Linnaeus. So you can see he was very important for bringing it all together. He didn't really come up with anything new, but he was the first to put it all together and kind of created this language scientists could use to communicate with each other. Lately, he's become a little controversial because he engaged in a lot of racist sort of quasi-science or pseudoscience. And if you want to Google that, go for it. It's pretty interesting. He was a lot of people then, as of now, have those nasty racial beliefs, and back then scientists were actually incorporating those racial beliefs, those racist beliefs, into science, and it was pretty bad. But science has gotten a lot better since then. Still not perfect, but getting better. So the two names, we want to look at genus and species. Genus and species. And the genus is, I made a misspelling there, is always capitalized. So as you saw before, Homo, you saw me write out capital, and then the species starts lowercase. And you want to have it in italics if you're typing it out. And then after you say it once, you can abbreviate it. Abbreviated. So H. sapiens, when we watch the video on the cavemen, Paranthropus boisei, I would just say P, and then Australopithecus afarensis is A. afarensis. And the way it works is the earliest published name is the one that's correct. So the first one that got published, boom, that's the one they're going to go with. So we have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and then species. So you have to memorize that. And kingdom is the broadest. So we're in the animal kingdom, so we share that kingdom with lots of different things, from birds to cats to worms to insects. We're all very different, but we're all categorized as animals because of the way our cells are shaped. And I gotta double check that. So if you share a kingdom with something like I was talking about with with insects and worms and rabbits, we're going to have fewer things in common than, say, if we share the same genus. Like, we don't have any other organisms in the same Homo genus before. We used to, but like Canis, you look at cats, Canis pantherus, Canis familiaris, the house cat, Canis felis, the lion. They're under that same, they're under that genus of Canis, so they're pretty similar. But under the kingdom Animalia, like with us, they share fewer things in common. So hopefully that's not too confusing how I explained it. And it's hard for me to see that. Oh yeah, order, that share an order will also share the same class, family, and kingdom. So if you're in the same order here, you're going to share these in common. Maybe not family, genus, and species. You might go different ways, but if you're in the same order, for example, we're in the family Homo or Hominidae with primates, or like the gorilla. We share the same order, class, phylum, kingdom, but we're different down here for the family, genus, and species. And there are now 3 major categories, 2 types of prokaryotes, and one eukaryote. So archaeans, eubacteria, and eukarya, and those are called domains. And these archaeans have been living the longest because they live in extreme conditions, so very high temperature, like we had first, the outset of Earth's existence, temperature, and and high salt concentrations. But trying to think, so high salt, high temperature, pH, so very acidic conditions or very basic conditions, you have archaeans that can survive there as well. And there's a category called methanogens. Some of you might recognize the root word methane there. Live inside the guts of cattle, termites, live in mud, and they create methane. And remember, viruses are not considered living things. Even Bill Nye likes to try to think that they're not living, or they are living, but they cannot replicate. Oops. They can't replicate on their own. They can't process energy, and they're not made of cells. So those are some really basic understandings of what we know of as life, and since viruses don't comport with those conditions, they're not considered like life. Maybe 20 years from now, 50 years from now, we'll adjust our understanding, and scientists will come to consensus and say, "Hey, look, you know, we'll consider them life now because we say they have some sort of a structure that resembles life and they affect life, so we'll do that." But not yet. So if you look carefully here, this almost looks like a, something an artist came up with. But if you look carefully here, you see a person, a little walkway, and maybe you recognize this as Yellowstone, okay, with all these geysers. And this is not Old Faithful, but you probably heard of Old Faithful. And I'm sorry, I don't know the name of this pond, but I really want to go there. That looks just phenomenal. But let's do clever, explain what's going on. So what would our claim be? Which domain is predominant? Think about that. It looks pretty hot, doesn't it? You see, if you look back, you'll see steam coming off there. So maybe we'll say archaea. And the evidence, okay, we know that they live in extreme conditions. And our reasoning is, extreme conditions existed on early Earth, and these are the remnants. These are organisms that have survived since the beginning of the Earth 4.5 billion years ago. So extreme conditions existed at the beginning of Earth's history. I'm just gonna beginning of Earth's history. Hopefully when I get a new computer someday it won't lag as much and it might improve my handwriting, but maybe not. So and they persist to this day. These organisms still are hanging on. And let's see. So when taxonomists, they need to reclassify if they come up with new information. New evidence is always being developed. Not always, but often comes up. And that's what's kind of cool is, remember, in science, things can change as scientists learn new things about the living world. And remember, gorillas and chimpanzees were placed in different families than human, in a separate family. That's not plural, so family. Over time, we were more common, commonly, I think is the word I'm looking for, commonly related than we thought, so we put us all into Homo. And just to review, so humans were Animalia, Chordata, then we're mammals, Mammalia. Let me go behind, I can't write behind there, primates, then hominidae, AE, then Homo, and as you know, sapiens. Sorry about those two slides, I'll get to those. Get you that information.